Dutch Harbor received a dusting of snow the day the Bering explorer returned to port. Rudy dug out his warmer flannel shirts and thermal underwear, readying himself for the onslaught of winter weather. Storms off the Bering Sea could arrive unannounced and with the fury of an approaching wild animal. He trudged over to the NMFS station to check in with the He trudged over to the NMFS station to check in with Hawk and see if his assignment had changed. "The Explorer is going out again on Monday," Hawk tapped his clipboard. "I'm putting you back on board because they'll be gone 2 weeks, and that will finish both their early pollock season and your time here." Hawk narrowed his eyes. "Can't convince you to stay for the winter season, can I?" Rudy groaned. "Nice try, man." He fist-bumped the man's shoulder. "But my other boss on the mainland expects me the 3rd week of October." "I had to ask." Hawk leaned back in his chair. We've got a good group of trainees coming in first of the year. A couple of them have gone through the program before, so they're practically guaranteed to make the grade. Nothing like experienced help. Rudy had passed the training his first time through the program, but not all were so fortunate. Possessing his North Pacific Groundfish Observer license became a ticket to more employment and future expeditions. He'd enjoyed the money and the adventure for a handful of seasons before returning to the mainland for warmer work. Except when they get tired of the cold and go home to warmer climates. Hawk's expression suggested he hadn't quit recruiting. "Much to be said about warmth." Rudy shook his head. "See you around, Hawk." The door squeaked on its hinge as he left the headquarters and headed toward the hotel. A gift shop operated on the ground floor. He entered and nodded a greeting to the small, round woman at the corner, guessing her to be native Aleutian. Glancing around the shop, he spotted Dane looking at a display of beaded headwear across the room. Not sure of what the man's response would be, Rudy moved toward him, smile in place. Dane looked up as he approached, a mixture of emotions playing across his face. The man almost appeared sheepish, his gaze darting around before examining the floor beneath his feet. Finally, he fixed his gaze on Rudy and nodded. "Hey." "How's it going?" Rudy pointed to the assortment of beaded items the man had been looking at when he arrived. "See anything you can afford?" Dane shook his head. "These native craft designs are beautiful, but they're expensive." He leaned against the counter, his expression troubled. "I wanted to apologize for my outburst on the ship a few days ago." Already forgotten. Rudy didn't want an apology. This man needed to pull himself up by his bootstraps and face his responsibilities. "When I last saw my family, Sydney was totally out of control. We couldn't take her anywhere without a screaming fit." He glanced away as if caught in the memory. "McKenna tried to share what she'd learned about autism, but I thought Sydney needed more discipline." "That's the natural response for fathers." Rudy shifted his weight onto his right leg. "We think we should control our kids." "Sydney defied everything I tried to do." Dane clenched his fist. "And spanking made her worse. I never seen anything like it." He shook his head. "She'd disobey and then bend over for the swat." An image of Sydney poised for battle flashed through his memory. Rudy bit back his chuckle. Dane raised an eyebrow. "She'd watch me to see my reaction." He straightened, sticking his hands in his jacket pockets. "How do you cope with something like that?" "One day at a time." "I just decided to leave. I know that makes me sound like a deserter, but I was afraid I'd overreact and wind up hurting my daughter. I'm not that kind of guy." "Neglecting her is not the answer either." Rudy swallowed, searching for words that could help this man accept his daughter's disability. "McKenna misses you. She's handling this all by herself. She's running the gallery." Dang it. "She's running the gallery and coping with Sydney's problems alone. Remember, she didn't ask for this task either." He paused, watching the man's reaction. Dane was listening, his face a mixture of regret and, what, hopefulness? A need for a second chance? Rudy couldn't decide, but he continued. "She needs your strength to lean on. Struggles are easier to bear when shared. That's what marriage is supposed to be. Dane inhaled and pressed his lips together, his gaze on the ceiling. I don't know. I'm not sure I'm the man for McKenna anymore. I do support her. I send her all I can since my day-to-day needs are pretty much met on board. A paycheck doesn't hold her at night when she's crying, nor does it fill the emptiness of her days alone with a child she desperately wants to understand. Rudy clenched his jaw, fighting back the pounding of his pulse as he struggled against antagonizing this man further. Didn't you promise to love, honor, and cherish McKenna when you married her? Through sickness and health, for richer, for poorer, for as long as you both shall live? But I didn't know we'd get a handicapped child. Dane's voice sounded feeble, as though his spirit had been broken by his circumstances. I wanted a little girl I could love, one who looked like her mother and would run into my arms and call me Daddy. Dane inhaled, swallowing as he stared at the ceiling. Instead, we got the monster from hell, a demon disguised as a little red-headed girl. Dane looked up at him, his eyes steeled against the moisture trying to escape. All I wanted McKenna to do was find a good place for Sydney to grow up, and we'd have another child, but she wouldn't even consider the option. So you left McKenna to raise Sydney by herself. Rudy fought the urge to shake this man's teeth loose from his gums. She's strong, but with you by her side, she'd be an unstoppable force. Sydney will never be whole, Rudy. She'll never be the daughter I dreamed of. Life doesn't come with guarantees. Rudy ached for this troubled man. Dane wanted what they all wanted, a wife, a home, a quiver of kids. But life hadn't dealt him a hand he didn't know how to play. So he folded, leaving the cards on the table. Admitting to a stranger he couldn't deal with Sydney's problems took courage. What if your second child came disabled? Would you farm that one out too?